Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making organic sourdough bread with you guys, so come along and learn how to make a really simple, delicious loaf of bread. I started off by adding the 5 cups of flour and the 2 cups of water together in a bowl. And I let sit and I let it autolyse. That just means that all the flour and water are incorporated. Right here I'm adding in my 2 cups of sourdough starter and my salt, and then I'm mixing it all together with my hands and with a wooden spoon too. But the trick that I like to do is to feed my starter right away after using it, stir it up really well, and then incorporate all of the dough together. I also really love my Berkey water filter. If you didn't see it in the earlier video, go back and check it out. It is such a great addition to the kitchen. This is what the dough looks like when it's all combined. After about 15 minutes, I'll do my first stretch and fold. And I just grab one end of the dough and I'll wrap it over the other end. I try to get all 4 sides if I can. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I basically repeat the process 15 minutes times 3 and then 30 minutes times 2 if I can. In this video where I made the bread, I just did it a few times. So this was every 15 minutes in the clip. I came back every 15 minutes. Sometimes I don't have time to do that, and I'll just get in a few stretch and folds within the hour and call it good. You want to at least wait 15 minutes so that you can actually stretch your dough. And this just ensures that there's nice big airy holes in your bread when you bake it and eat it. I love feeding my starter right after starting my dough. Look how nice and active it is right here after about 8 hours sitting out on the counter. Right at nighttime, when I'm about to put the dough in the proofing baskets, I open up the starter and see it bubbling and popping, and I know that it is good to as well go in the fridge and go dormant for a little while. This is my dough that is doubled in size. This is the original dough. So you can see it's gotten a lot bigger and it's ready for its final shape. I'm going to take it out of the bowl and do a final shape on it. I'm actually going to cut this dough into 2 because I don't want 1 large loaf, I want 2 smaller loaves. You can really decide, but right now I'm getting out my proofing baskets. If you don't have proofing baskets, I will leave a link in the description box below for the one that I love. I actually only have 1, so I'm using just a glass white bowl right here, adding a damp tea towel in. Actually, the damp tea towel is only on the outer edges. I'll show you in a second, but I just add a tea towel in the bottom of that one and then flour it and so that the bread doesn't stick. And then I put a damp tea towel over the top so the crust doesn't harden as it's in the fridge. And with the proofing basket, what I like to do is simply make sure that the bottom is really well floured. And I'll put the dough in after I do my final shape, like you see right here. And then I will put a damp tea towel over the proofing basket and wrap it up and put it in the fridge overnight. You can proof as long as you need to proof. I know some people have proofed as long as 5 days. That's a long time, but I usually just do mine overnight. You can see these nice big bubbles in the dough that are beautiful and ready to proof. Whenever I'm making sourdough bread, I really just like to think of the recipe as simple as 5-2-2. 5 cups of flour, 2 cups of water, 2 cups of starter, and salt. This is the most simple way I can think about it when I'm making bread in a pinch, and it is just an easy marker for me to remember the ingredients. I don't use a scale or anything like that, so I'm just really making this bread off of touch and feel with a little measurements here and there with the cups of flour and the water. I also really like to let the flour and the water sit for at least 30 minutes to autolyse before I go ahead and put any starter on it. I think it's autolyse, that's the correct way to say it. But I like to let that sit and incorporate for at least 30 minutes if I have the time. If I don't have the time, I just mix it all together and it has been turned out just the same. So, but proper, I guess, is supposed to let it sit and let that flour and water connect before adding the sourdough starter. Right here, I'm just folding the damp tea towel over the bread, and I'm going to be putting this in the refrigerator for its last proof for the overnight time. bread looks like in the morning. It has gotten a little bit bigger, but it is nice and firm, and it's ready to be pulled out of the proofing baskets. I like to get some parchment paper ready and put the bread right onto the parchment paper, and then lift the parchment paper from the countertop into the Dutch oven. And my proofing basket, actually the cloth is inside out, so it left that nice mark on the bread. But what I like to do is flour the surface of the bread, and then I will take a little razor and go ahead and do some scoring on it. And it's just the best time to score because it is nice and firm, and it is really easy to get that pattern. While I am scoring the bread and just preparing it for the oven, my Dutch oven is inside of the oven at 500 degrees preheating. It's really important to have that Dutch oven really hot before you put the bread in, so it has a nice spring to it. You never want to put sourdough bread into a cold Dutch oven before you bake it, and so that is what it's doing. I at least try to get it 30 minutes in there. Sometimes I can only get 15, but try to get something, some kind of heat on that Dutch oven before you put that dough in. That way it can have a good spring to it right as it hits the oven. So right here I'm just taking out a hot preheated Dutch oven. My oven's at 500 degrees, and I keep that oven at 500 degrees for right around 15 to 20 minutes baking the bread, and the last 10 or so I will take the lid off so the bread can get nice and brown. That's really the whole process of making sourdough bread, and I hope you guys kind of got the gist of it in this video. If you have questions or want to see my baker's timeline, go ahead and check out the description link down below. I leave the actual full recipe in my blog post. Thanks for watching, and tune in for another video next time.